and other things. And that's what the comptroller is talking about in this report.
Let me tell you another, you want to know another line? Supervisor, Personal Services, 119,648. You ready, guys? Competitive bidding, next November.
This gentleman's been with us for some time. Sir, would like to speak?
Yeah, hi. My name's Jacob Gambino. I write for a website called 10509.org. I'm a town resident. I've been here before. First, I'd just like to make a quick statement, and then I just had a couple of quick questions. You mentioned earlier tonight in your budget statement the word family. I think you mentioned it a couple times. And I find that an interesting word to use with how you want to interact with the town. Because to me, if this is a family and we're kind of looking at you as the father, I feel like fathers and adults in general, they lead by example. And they live in the present. They don't live in the past, and they don't live in the hypothetical future. So just a couple of things that popped to mind is I know Councilman Yee said he wanted to fight all these the gravy train and all that stuff. People getting all these kickbacks or whatever you want to say. There's a time and a place for fighting, but there's also a time and a place for working together in cooperation. And I just want to say, in general, so far, not just last week, which we all know, got a little out of hand, but, sorry, not last week, last meeting. But in general, I feel like the cooperation from both sides of the board is lacking, but I find it insulting that you don't come with any constructive information, and I feel like there's a pattern of misdirection. It sounds like you guys are reading a lot instead of just speaking. And so it seems like you're speaking to each other. Dwight usually looks at you, and you usually look at Dwight. There's not too much eye contact with the crowd, like kind of right now.
You have my attention, sir.
Okay. Well, I was also talking to Dwight because usually he's more the eye contact guy. I think ethically, Mr. Gross brought it up earlier. You're slated to get a raise next year through union stuff, and I understand there's contract negotiations. But hopefully, I was hoping to get maybe just a yes or no answer from you on this one point. Recently, actually, I picked up the Putnam County Examiner, and it looks like the Carmel town supervisor is foregoing his slotted raise and taking a pay cut next year. And that's an example of what I would call leading by example. So maybe, whether it's done through contract negotiations or maybe it's done through you writing a check next year back to the town to give the money that you got in a raise, I'd like you to answer the question directly on, are you ethically okay with taking a pay raise while you are probably going to cut, I'd say, more than one job? It sounds like you guys are looking to cut maybe 3, maybe 5. There's positions that are going to be cut. So, yes or no, are you okay taking a pay raise when people lose their jobs?
Well, sir, as I mentioned...
Yes or no. I'm just asking for yes or no, because I had another question. It's not really one I want to open for debate. I just kind of want your input ethically.
I'm not looking to have a back and forth with you. As
great. Well, then just say yes or no, because I'm not looking for a back and forth either.
There's no raise, sir. There's no raise. It's a 0%. 0% for me. It's 0%, for all department heads. Everyone's treated the same.
So your increase in spending on the line item for supervisor's office, are you willing to forgo that? Or are you willing to forgo any of the, budgetary matters that it seems like maybe have been, treated in a malfeasant way this year?
Sir,
yeah, yes or no? I'm just asking. It's not. I don't.
Sir, again, the increase.
Because to me, it sounds like no. That's the way it sounds like is no. Because when you don't say yes, that sounds like a no.
Pardon me, sir. The supervisor's line is increased by 2% on our secretary's salary only. That's it, and she's treated the same as all non-union.
So that was. So I guess that was a no. That let's say even if there is an increase in salary across, for anyone, or are you willing to write that off and give it back to the town?
Sir, we're talking tonight, and tonight's a work session, no voting.
Okay, yeah, you are correct.
Apart from the special meeting, which we're going to close in a little bit, but no voting on this issue. And it sounds like there may not be raises for anybody next year. And if that's how it works out, then that sounds...
Okay, all right, that's great, that's great. So, all right, I'm just going to interpret that as a no comment, not a yes or a no. So, also, I'm very happy you guys have delivered a budget, 1, on time, and 2, without a property tax increase. But I feel like the budget you've proposed is lacking in many areas that are maybe key to families who might not be as fortunate as you, might not be as fortunate as us here. These are people that live in the village, these are people that live in the town of Southeast, and these are people that actually get use out of the village They get use out of the library. They go there. They go to the museum. They have connections with people there. And I feel like by proposing a budget that cuts in those valuable areas to the community, all you're doing is giving yourself a platform to say that I proposed a budget that didn't have a tax increase, and it's me, me, me. And there seems like a lot of, hey, this is what we're doing, as opposed to this is what we're doing for the town. You're paid to look out for the town. You're not paid to look out for you. And I think there's a lot of political posturing going on a year out, which it just seems insulting to me that you propose a budget that I think a lot of people in the room here take issue with, and a lot of people in the room here think is not feasible to work with. So do you have any just any general statement that you'd like to make about how you kind of shoot for the stars even though it's unattainable?
Yes, sir. With respect to the budget, as I mentioned earlier, my budget is premised on two foundational columns. One column is property tax freeze, because taxpayers are taxed enough already. And the second column is the inception of competitive process with respect to enormous, colossal public expenditures. Those are the two columns, sir. And in a macro analytic context, that is the fairest budget that I can produce is one that is fair townwide. And a property tax freeze, in my estimation, folks are losing their homes, folks are struggling with their water bills, people are, our constituents are borrowing against the value of their homes to pay their water bills in some of these, and one special district in particular. And folks are struggling. So we need the help, and they are taxed enough already. And a property tax freeze puts that in place.
Can I make one comment? Jake, regarding the library, it's not a charity. It's a nucleus of a community, as most libraries are. And in difficult economic times, as I know you've spoken about, people use the library even more, computers and research and so forth. So it's actually more important today than it was a couple of years ago when things were a little better economically. So that library is going to maintain itself.
I couldn't agree more. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have for now. But I'd kind of like everyone to be aware of what's going on here, and I don't want to make any accusations. I just think that you're proposing some things that aren't doable just merely to say that you've proposed them after the fact, because it seems like there's a lot of living in the future and living in the past. You're living off past votes and past actions as opposed to dealing with the problems now. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to hopefully streamline some of your lectures / reading off of stuff, or whatever you guys got there. It just seems like there's a lot of reading and not a lot of creative input or problem solving. So I'd love to see you stand up and be a great father to Southeast family, but I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe we're just too far gone on the gravy train, and we're not helpable.
Thank you, Jay.
So all right, thanks.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Nixon. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here tonight as president of the Southeast Museum. And similar to what Mr. Gross just said about the library, I want to make a clarification of terms about the museum. The museum is also not a charity in the way that, say, the Red Cross is a charity. The museum is not a private sector business in the way that Walmart might be. The Southeast Museum is a not-for-profit educational institution. It is governed by a board of trustees, of which this year I am president. The Southeast Museum is also chartered by the New York State Department of Education, one of two such museums in this county. And as such, the New York State Department of Education holds the museum to certain standards that maintain our charter as an educational institution. The museum is a resource to our community, from everyone from small children to senior citizens. And in fact, the Brewster Central Schools rely on our museum as a resource for their students. To entirely defund the museum, which does get funding from a variety of sources, including the town of Southeast, but it is a significant portion does come from the town of Southeast. The reason we're able to get other grants, do other fundraising and the like, is because we do have a very resourceful staff. That would be seriously jeopardized by entirely defunding the museum. It will be a significant blow to the museum's ability to operate, and ultimately, therefore, a significant blow to our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, Ms. Marison. Thanks for joining us. Welcome.
My name is Lynn Marison. I've been on the Board of Trustees of the library for quite some time. And I'll be brief. I basically take great offense at the library being termed a charity. As our councilman suggested, the library's mission is an educational mission for the community. We're a place of education, and the programming is all educational for childhood literacy. There are a number for childhood literacy of children of all languages. We provide after-school homework help. We enhance the Brewster Public Library services, the Brewster Public School services. We have an increasing population of seniors. We provide technology training. One of the major roles of a library in this day and age is providing the computers and the technology necessary for people to fill out their taxes, for people to apply for jobs who don't have available computers at their homes. With a number of people out of work, the library is a resource. There are a lot of Mid-Hudson Library Services providing libraries with training to help people find jobs. It's an essential resource. And last of all, we can't ignore the non-English speaking people in our community, and a library has always been the place where those people get integrated into the community. At current funding, it is a mere $11 per Southeast resident, all the services I mentioned. And I didn't even mention borrowing movies, books, all the other things that you can get, magazines, whatever, all those services. A mere $11 per resident. That's going to Blockbuster for 2 movies. And to take all that money away, Zippo, and close those library doors seems like a terrible sin.
Thank you, Ms. Marison. Thank you. Yes, ma'am, welcome.
Good evening. My name is Denise Merkel, and I'm a resident of Southeast. And if you'll bear with me for just a few minutes, with all that has been said, comparatively speaking, this is a very brief statement that I'd like to read it, and it captures a lot of what Mrs. Marison just said. I actually cut this out of a newspaper in July. I thought it was so good. And right now, in light of what might be happening, I can think of nothing better than, if I may ask your indulgence, and I would like to read this. It's an article that was written by Marilyn Johnson for the Los Angeles Times, and she is the author of a most recent book called This Book is Overdue. And the title of her article was Public Libraries, We Lose Them at Our Peril. The United States is beginning an interesting experiment in democracy. We are cutting public library funds, shrinking our public and school libraries, and in some places shutting them altogether. These actions have nothing to do with whether the libraries are any good or whether the staff provides useful service to the community. This country's largest circulating library in Queens, New York, was named the best system in the United States last year by Library Journal. Its budget is due to shrink by 1/3. Los Angeles libraries will be locked 2 days a week and at least 100 jobs cut. Such cuts are beginning to happen across the country. We won't miss 1/3 of our librarians and branch libraries the way we'd miss 1/3 of our firefighters and firehouses. The rationale goes. But I wonder. I spent 4 years following librarians as they deal with the tremendous increase in information and many ways we receive it. It seems that the work has all but been invisible to those in power. I've talked to librarians whose jobs have expanded with the demand for computers and training.